One moment, you are living your life, perhaps a farmer tilling your small plot of land outside a distant village, or a craftsman honing your skills in a bustling provincial town. The sun warms your back. The scent of fresh earth or sawdust fills your nostrils, and the familiar voices of your family and neighbors are a comforting backdrop to your days. You have plans, hopes, a future that, while perhaps modest, feels like your own. The next moment, it is all ripped away. The sounds of battle are distant at first, a low rumble on the horizon, like a summer storm gathering strength. Then they grow louder, more insistent, the clash of steel, the shouts of men, the terrified screams of women and children. Panic erupts in your village. You grab what you can, your heart pounding a frantic rhythm against your ribs, urging your family to flee. But it is too late. The Roman legions, a relentless tide of disciplined soldiers, sweep through, their bronze armor glinting ominously in the sun. This sudden, brutal capture during wartime was a common historical fact. Military conquest was a primary source of slaves for the Roman Empire, swelling their ranks with captives from conquered territories. Rough hands seize you, binding your wrists with coarse rope that chafes your skin. The world tilts, blurring into a kaleidoscope of terror and confusion. You are pushed, shoved, and dragged along with countless others, men, women, and children, all sharing the same bewildered, terrified expressions. The familiar scents of your home are replaced by the metallic tang of blood, the acrid smell of smoke from burning homes, and the pungent odor of unwashed bodies pressed too close together. Your voice, if you try to cry out, is lost in the cacophony of despair. The journey begins. You march, day after day, under the merciless sun or through chilling rain, your feet aching, your muscles screaming in protest. Food is scarce, often just a handful of stale grain or a piece of hard bread, barely enough to sustain you. Water is even scarcer, a precious commodity doled out sparingly, leaving your throat parched and your lips cracked. The guards, Roman soldiers or slave traders, are indifferent to your suffering, their faces impassive, their commands sharp and unforgiving. If you falter, if you fall, a prod from a spear or a whip quickly reminds you of your new reality. It's like being on the world's worst hiking trip, but instead of scenic views, you get forced marches. And instead of trail mix, you get, well, nothing. The loss of your identity is swift and brutal. Your name, your family, your homeland, these are stripped away, replaced by a new, dehumanizing label service, a slave. You are no longer a person with rights or dreams, but property, a commodity to be bought, sold, and used. The conversations around you are in a language you barely understand. Latin, a harsh, unfamiliar tongue that reinforces your isolation. You are a stranger in a strange land, utterly alone in a sea of suffering. As you are marched through unfamiliar landscapes, you begin to grasp the vastness of the Roman Empire. Its roads are meticulously built, stretching endlessly across the land. Its towns are larger, more organized, and filled with a bewildering array of people and goods. You see evidence of immense wealth, of buildings grander than anything you've ever imagined, and you realize the sheer power of the civilization that has swallowed your life whole. A little-known detail about the initial capture of slaves is the psychological impact of being forcibly removed from one's culture and language. Many captives would have experienced profound disorientation and trauma. a form of cultural shock that compounded the physical hardships of their new reality. Learning Latin, even rudimentary phrases, became a matter of survival, a desperate attempt to bridge the vast chasm between your old life and your new, terrifying existence. The journey culminates in a bustling, chaotic city. Perhaps it's a port like Ostia, or a major urban center like Rome itself. The sheer scale of it is overwhelming. The noise, the crowds, the endless stream of carts and people. It's a sensory assault. You are herded into holding pens, crude enclosures where you are crammed together with other captives, awaiting your fate. The air is thick with the stench of sweat, fear, and human waste. You cling to any small comfort. A shared glance with another captive, a brief moment of shade from the scorching sun. The process of dehumanization continues. You are inspected, prodded, and examined like an animal. Your teeth are checked, your muscles felt, your body turned this way and that. Potential buyers, wealthy Romans in fine togas, walk among you, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and disdain. They discuss your physical attributes, your potential uses, your flaws, all in a language you can't fully comprehend, but whose meaning is chillingly clear. You are a piece of merchandise, your value determined by your strength, your youth, your perceived docility. It's like being at a car dealership, but you're the car, and the sales pitch is about how well you can carry heavy things or clean toilets. The fear of the unknown is perhaps the most terrifying aspect. Where will you go? Who will your master be? What kind of life awaits you? The rumors fly among the captives tales of brutal mine work, of endless toil in the fields, of harsh punishments, of lives cut short by exhaustion and despair. You cling to the faintest hope that you might be bought by a benevolent master, one who might treat you with a modicum of kindness, but that hope is a fragile flicker in the overwhelming darkness. The academic debate still rages about the precise psychological impact of initial enslavement on individuals. While historical sources often focus on the economic and legal aspects of slavery, scholars are increasingly using archaeological evidence and comparative studies to understand the deep trauma, loss of identity, and psychological resilience, or lack thereof, experienced by those forcibly enslaved in ancient Rome. You might see families torn apart, children separated from their parents, spouses ripped from each other's arms. The cries of despair echo in the holding pens, a haunting symphony of broken bonds. You realize that your own family, if they survived the initial capture, are likely scattered to the winds, their fates as uncertain as your own. The thought is a fresh wound, a constant ache in your heart, as the days turn into weeks, waiting for your turn on the auction block. You begin to adapt, to learn the subtle cues, the unwritten rules of your new existence. You learn to keep your head down, to avoid eye contact, to respond quickly to commands. You learn to conserve your energy, to eat quickly, to sleep whenever possible. Your body, though weary, begins to adjust to the relentless demands placed upon it. The silence of your new reality is deafening. You are no longer permitted to speak freely, to express your opinions, to tell your stories. Your voice, once your own, is now suppressed, allowed only for answering questions or acknowledging commands. You become a shadow, a silent presence, your thoughts and feelings locked away, unshared. It's a profound loneliness, a spiritual isolation that cuts deeper than any physical pain. Finally, your turn comes. You are led to the auction block, a raised platform where you stand exposed, vulnerable, before a crowd of potential buyers. The auctioneer's voice drones on, extolling your virtues, exaggerating your strength, painting a picture of a perfect piece of property. You hear the bids, a flurry of numbers, each one sealing your fate, each one a nail in the coffin of your freedom. Your heart pounds, a desperate drum against your ribs, as you watch the faces in the crowd, trying to discern your future in their eyes. The hammer falls. A new master steps forward, his face a blur of indifference, or perhaps a fleeting hint of curiosity. He takes possession of you, a simple transaction, a change of ownership. You are now his. Your life, your labor, your very being are no longer your own. You are led away, a nameless face in a sea of countless others, heading towards an unknown future, a future defined by the terrible fate of an ancient Roman slave. And as you walk, you realize that the chains that bind you are not just the ropes around your wrists, but the invisible bonds of a system that has stolen your humanity. You are no longer a person, but a commodity. The journey from your homeland, a blur of fear and exhaustion, has culminated in this, the bustling, cacophonous heart of the Roman slave market. The air here is thick with the mingled scents of sweat, dust, unwashed bodies, and the sharp, metallic tang of fear. It's a sensory assault, a stark contrast to the familiar smells of your village or the clean air of the open road. This is where your fate will be sealed, where your very being will be reduced to a price, a transaction. This process of being bought and sold, often multiple times, was a common historical fact for countless individuals swept into the Roman Empire's vast system of slavery. You stand in a line, perhaps naked or clad only in a rough loincloth, exposed to the elements and the merciless gaze of potential buyers. The cold pavement beneath your bare feet is a constant reminder of your vulnerability. Around you, other captives share your bewildered, terrified expressions. Some weep silently, tears tracing paths through the grime on their cheeks. Others stare blankly ahead, their eyes vacant, their spirits seemingly broken. You try to keep your own face impassive, to betray no weakness, for you've quickly learned that any sign of defiance or despair can lower your value, or worse, invite harsher treatment. The slave market is a spectacle, a vibrant, brutal theater of human commerce. Merchants shout prices in booming voices, extolling the virtues of their wares. Buyers, wealthy Romans in their pristine togas, stroll through the rows of human beings, their expressions a mixture of casual curiosity, shrewd calculation, and sometimes outright disdain. They prod, they poke, they inspect, treating you no differently than they would a horse or a piece of pottery. Your teeth are examined, your muscles are felt, your limbs are flexed. You are made to walk, to run, to demonstrate your physical capabilities. It's like a really uncomfortable job interview. But instead of answering questions, you're just being poked. And the job is eternal servitude. The auctioneer, a man with a booming voice and a practiced smile, stands on a raised platform, gesturing dramatically. He points to each captive in turn, reciting their supposed age, their origin, their skills, often exaggerating their virtues and downplaying any flaws. He might claim you are a skilled craftsman, even if you've never held a tool in your life, or boast of your strength, regardless of how weary you feel. The words are in Latin, a language that still feels alien on your tongue, but the intent is clear to sell you for the highest possible price. You are forced to stand for hours, sometimes days, under the relentless sun or in the chilling wind. Your feet swell, your legs ache, and your mind drifts between a desperate hope for a quick sale and a profound dread of what comes next. The hunger that has become your constant companion gnaws at your stomach, a dull, persistent ache. Thirst is even worse, a burning sensation in your throat that makes every breath an effort. You learn to ignore the discomfort, to push it down, to simply exist. A little-known detail about Roman slave markets is the practice of placing a titulus or placard around a slave's neck. This sign would list basic information about the slave, such as their origin, age, skills, and any known defects or illnesses. It was essentially a human product label, designed to provide potential buyers with quick information and to protect the seller from later claims of misrepresentation. Imagine having your entire life summarized on a tiny billboard around your neck, including your known defects. Talk about a bad first impression. The buyers discuss you openly, their voices carrying through the market. They debate your perceived value, your potential for hard labor, your suitability for domestic service. You hear phrases like strong back, good teeth, docile temperament, and you realize they are talking about you, about your body, as if it were an object devoid of thought or feeling. This dehumanization is a constant, grinding force, slowly eroding your sense of self. The fear of being separated from any remaining family members is a fresh wound. You might cling to a sibling, a parent, a child, your hands clasped together in a desperate attempt to stay united. But the market is ruthless. Families are often split apart, sold to different masters, sent to different corners of the vast empire. You witness the heart-wrenching cries of those torn from their loved ones, a sound that echoes the despair in your own heart. The knowledge that you might never see them again is a crushing weight. The academic debate still rages about the precise scale and demographics of the Roman slave trade. While it's clear that millions were enslaved, scholars continue to analyze archaeological evidence, literary sources, and economic data to better understand the origins, distribution, and ultimate fates of these vast populations, and how much the demand for different types of slaves, e.g., skilled versus unskilled, domestic versus agricultural, shaped the market. Sometimes a buyer might approach you directly, their eyes scrutinizing your face, your hands, your posture. They might ask you questions in broken Latin or through an interpreter, testing your understanding, your willingness to obey. You respond with the few Latin words you've managed to pick up, or with a nod, a gesture, anything to convey your compliance. Your future hangs on these brief, terrifying interactions. The smell of the market is overwhelming, the sharp tang of sweat and unwashed bodies, the earthy scent of straw and animal waste, the sweet, cloying odor of cheap perfumes worn by some of the buyers. It's a constant assault on your senses, a physical manifestation of the degradation you are experiencing. You try to focus on a single point, to block out the noise and the smells, to retreat into the quiet sanctuary of your own mind. The auction block itself is a place of profound despair. You are led onto the raised platform, the rough wood beneath your feet. The auctioneer's voice booms, echoing through the market, drawing attention to you. You stand there, naked or nearly so, your body exposed, your vulnerability laid bare for all to see. The bids begin, a rapid-fire exchange of numbers, each one a hammer blow to your dwindling hope. You watch the faces in the crowd, trying to find a hint of kindness, a flicker of compassion, but mostly you see indifference or calculation. It's like being on a dating show, but instead of finding love, you're just hoping someone buys you, and your future happiness is entirely dependent on their mood. The moment the hammer falls is both a relief and a fresh wave of despair. The uncertainty is over, but the reality of your new ownership settles over you like a heavy shroud. A new master steps forward, his face a blur of indifference, or perhaps a fleeting hint of curiosity. He takes possession of you. A simple transaction, a change of ownership. You are now his. Your life, your labor, your very being are no longer your own. You are led away from the bustling market, away from the cries of those still waiting, towards an unknown future. The chains that bind you are not just the ropes around your wrists, but the invisible bonds of a system that has stolen your humanity. You might be led to a grand Roman villa, to a bustling workshop, or to a dark, foreboding mine. Each destination promises a different kind of servitude, a different set of challenges, but all share the common thread of absolute control. The journey to your new home is often silent, your new master or his oversire leading the way. You are given a new name, a Roman name, stripping away the last vestiges of your former identity. You are instructed in the basic rules of your new household or workplace, often with harsh warnings about the consequences of disobedience. Your life is now dictated by the whims of another. Every moment, every action, every thought, subject to their authority. You learn quickly that defiance is met with swift and brutal punishment. A whip, a beating, a knight in chains. These are the tools used to enforce obedience. You learn to anticipate your master's moods, to read the subtle cues, to avoid angering them. Your survival depends on your ability to be docile, to be compliant, to be invisible. It's a constant performance, a suppression of your true self, a desperate attempt to avoid pain and suffering. The other slaves you encounter in your new home or workplace are a mix of resigned despair and quiet resilience. Some are broken, their spirits crushed by years of servitude. Others cling to a flicker of hope, a shared glance, a whispered word of comfort. You learn to discern who can be trusted, who might offer a moment of solace, and who might betray you for a small favor from the master. The bonds forged in shared suffering are often the only true connections you have. The reality of your new life sinks in with each passing day. There is no escape, no easy path to freedom. Your days are filled with relentless labor, your nights with restless sleep, haunted by the memories of your past and the uncertainties of your future. The glory of Rome, which once seemed so distant and powerful, now feels like a cruel joke, built on the backs of countless individuals like you, whose lives are measured only by their utility. You are a cog in a vast, impersonal machine, a living tool in the hands of your Roman owners. Your skills, your strength, your very existence are dedicated to their comfort, their wealth, their power. and as you perform your endless tasks, you carry the heavy burden of your terrible fate, a silent testament to the brutal reality of ancient Roman slavery. Your new master has made his choice. You are not destined for a grand villa, nor a bustling workshop, nor the fields under the open sky. Instead, you are part of a grim procession, shackled together with other newly acquired slaves. March towards a destination that fills your heart with a cold dread, the mines. The very word hangs in the air, heavy with the weight of despair, for the mines of ancient Rome were synonymous with a living hell, a place where lives were consumed by darkness, dust, and unending toil. This brutal reality of forced labor in Roman mines was a common historical fact, fueling the empire's insatiable demand for precious metals and raw materials. The journey to the mine is long and arduous. You walk for days, perhaps weeks, across rugged terrain, your bare feet or worn sandals offering little protection against the sharp stones and unforgiving earth. The chains that bind you to your fellow captives chafe your wrists and ankles, a constant, metallic reminder of your lost freedom. Food is meager, water scarce, and rest is a luxury granted only in brief, uncomfortable intervals, huddled together under the indifferent gaze of your guards. The air, once filled with the sounds of the bustling market, is now dominated by the rhythmic clanking of chains and the weary sighs of your companions. As you approach the mining site, the landscape transforms. The vibrant greens and browns of the natural world give way to a scarred, desolate expanse. The ground is churned and barren, littered with piles of excavated rock and the skeletal remains of rudimentary structures. A pervasive, acrid smell, a mix of damp earth, sulfur, and human waste, hangs heavy in the air. The sounds are equally grim, the dull thud of picks against rock, the creak of wooden machinery, and the distant echoing cries of men. You realize, with a sickening lurch in your stomach, that this is your new reality. The entrance to the mine yawns before you, a dark, gaping maw in the earth, seemingly swallowing the light. The air grows heavy, damp, and cold, even on the hottest days. You are pushed forward, down into the depths, the light fading with every step, until you are enveloped by an oppressive, suffocating darkness. The only illumination comes from flickering oil lamps, casting dancing shadows on the rough-hewn walls, making the narrow tunnels seem to writhe and twist around you. It's like being trapped in the world's most claustrophobic, dusty, and perpetually dark basement, but with the added bonus of imminent collapse. Your first task is often simple, yet soul-crushing: to hack at the rock face with a pickaxe. The weight of the tool is immense. Your muscles, already weary from the journey, protest with every swing. The rock is unyielding, each blow yielding only a handful of dust or a small chip. The dust, fine and pervasive, quickly coats your skin, clogs your nostrils, and burns your throat. You cough, your lungs burning. But there is no respite. The overseers, often former slaves themselves, or hardened Roman foremen, stand watch, their whips ready to lash out at any sign of slowing or defiance. The conditions in the mines are beyond brutal. The air is thick with dust, making every breath a struggle. The tunnels are cramped, often barely wide enough for a man to stand upright, forcing you to work in stupid, unnatural positions that twist your spine and strain your limbs. The darkness is absolute, broken only by the dim, flickering light of oil lamps, which cast more shadows than illumination. You learn to navigate by feel, your hands constantly brushing against the rough new, cold rock. The constant threat of collapse is a pervasive fear. The earth groans and shifts around you, a living, breathing entity that could at any moment decide to bury you alive. You hear the distant rumble of falling rock, the sudden crack of timber supports, and your heart leaps into your throat. Every creak, every tremor, sends a jolt of terror through your body. A little-known detail about Roman mining practices is that they often used a technique called fire setting, where fires were lit against rock faces to heat and crack them, making extraction easier. While effective, this also filled the mines with noxious fumes and increased the risk of collapse, adding another layer of danger for the enslaved miners. Food is barely enough to sustain life, let alone the immense physical exertion demanded of you. It's often a coarse gruel, a few olives, or a piece of stale bread, delivered irregularly. Water, often contaminated, is doled out sparingly, leaving you in a perpetual state of thirst. Your body, once strong, begins to waste away, your ribs becoming more prominent, your skin stretched taut over your bones. Hunger and exhaustion become your constant companions, dulling your senses, blurring the lines between waking and sleeping. Hey guys, tonight we're taking a journey back, not to a time of glorious empires and heroic battles, but to the darker, often forgotten underbelly of ancient Rome. We're going to step into the sandals of someone whose life was not their own, someone who existed at the very bottom of society, an ancient Roman slave. Imagine the bustling streets of Rome, the grandeur of the Colosseum, the intricate aqueducts. Now strip away all sense of personal agency, of choice, of freedom. Feel the rough fabric of a simple tunic against your skin, the gnawing hunger in your stomach, and the constant, chilling awareness that your very existence is owned by another. This isn't a fairy tale. It's a stark, unvarnished look at a life of servitude. And let's be real. If you were actually there, you probably wouldn't survive past Tuesday. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, drop a comment below and let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Sleep, when it comes, is snatched in brief, uncomfortable intervals, often in the very tunnels where you work, or in crude, overcrowded barracks. The air is still thick with dust and the stench of unwashed bodies. The sounds of the mine, the distant thud of picks, the creak of machinery, the coughs and groans of your fellow slaves are a constant backdrop to your restless dreams. There is no true rest, no escape from the pervasive misery. Injuries are common, almost inevitable. A pickaxe slips, gashing your leg. A falling rock crushes your hand. A splinter from a wooden support pierces your skin, festering into a painful infection. There are no doctors in the mines, no healers. A fellow slave might try to bind your wound with a dirty rag or offer a few words of comfort, but true medical care is non-existent. A severe injury means you are no longer useful, and a useless slave is a dead slave. You might be left to die in the tunnels, or dragged out to perish under the open sky, your body discarded like so much waste rock. The academic debate still rages about the precise mortality rates in Roman mines, while literary sources suggest incredibly high death tolls. Archaeological evidence is often difficult to interpret, and scholars continue to analyze skeletal remains and mining techniques to understand the true human cost of this brutal form of labor. However, all agree that life in the mines was exceptionally short and harsh. The overseers are brutal, their whips and clubs ever present. Any sign of slowing, any whispered complaint, any perceived act of defiance is met with swift and merciless punishment. You learn to move quickly, to keep your head down, to avoid eye contact. The fear of the whip, of the lash across your back, is a powerful motivator, driving your exhausted body to continue its relentless toil. It's like having a personal trainer who only motivates with pain, and your workout never ends. The work is monotonous, soul-crushing in its repetition. Day after day, you swing your pickaxe, load baskets of rock, or push heavy carts through narrow tunnels. The sun, when you occasionally see it, is a distant, blinding disk in the opening of the mine, a painful reminder of the world you have lost. You lose track of time, of days, of weeks. Your existence becomes a blur of darkness, dust, and pain. The psychological toll is immense. The constant darkness, the isolation, the relentless labor, the pervasive fear, it grinds down your spirit. You might find yourself drifting into a detached state, your mind retreating from the unbearable reality. Some slaves go mad, their screams echoing through the tunnels until they are silenced by the overseers. Others simply give up, their bodies succumbing to exhaustion and despair. Escape is almost impossible. The mines are often located in remote, desolate areas, far from any sympathetic communities. The guards are vigilant, the terrain unforgiving, and your weakened body offers little chance of outrunning your pursuers. The consequences of capture are horrific, serving as a grim warning to any who might contemplate rebellion. Yet, even in this living hell, whispers of hope might occasionally surface. A shared glance with a fellow slave, a brief moment of solidarity, a whispered word of comfort in the darkness. These small acts of humanity are precious, a reminder that even here, in the depths of despair, the human spirit can cling to a flicker of connection. You might learn to recognize the faces of those who share your fate, to understand their unspoken suffering, to find a grim camaraderie in shared misery. The sounds of the mine become your world, the rhythmic clang of picks, the scraping of shovels, the creak of wooden supports, the drip of water from the damp rock, and the constant, rasping coughs of the miners. These sounds are punctuated by the shouts of the overseers, the crack of whips, and the occasional, terrifying rumble of a cave-in. Your ears become attuned to these noises, learning to distinguish the normal sounds of work from the ominous warnings of impending disaster. You carry the ore, heavy baskets of rock, on your back, up steep, slippery inclines, your legs burning, your lungs screaming. The weight seems to increase with every step, pressing down on your already aching spine. The journey out of the mine, towards the distant, blinding light of the surface, is almost as arduous as the work itself. And when you finally emerge, blinking in the harsh sunlight, your body is covered in dust, your face streaked with sweat and grime, a ghost of your former self. Your life in the mines is a slow, agonizing death. Each day brings you closer to the inevitable end, whether it's from exhaustion, injury, disease, or a sudden collapse. There is no glory here, no honor, only the relentless, dehumanizing grind of forced labor. Your existence is a testament to the brutal efficiency of the Roman Empire, built on the suffering of countless individuals like you, swallowed whole by the earth, their lives reduced to the extraction of metal, and as you lay down your weary body at the end of another endless day, the dust still clinging to your skin, the sounds of the mine still echoing in your ears, you understand the terrible fate that has befallen you. It is a life without light, without hope, without freedom, a silent scream buried deep within the earth. Your new master has made his choice. You are not destined for a grand villa, nor a bustling workshop, nor the dark, suffocating depths of the mines. Instead, you are part of a grim procession, shackled together with other newly acquired slaves, marched towards a destination that, at first glance, seems less immediately terrifying, but promises a different kind of unending torment. The vast, sun-baked agricultural estates of Rome. The very air here, though cleaner than the mines, hangs heavy with the scent of earth and growing things. A deceptive tranquility that masks the brutal reality of endless toil under the relentless Roman sun. This widespread reliance on slave labor for large-scale agriculture, particularly on the latifundia, was a common historical fact, forming the economic backbone of the Roman Empire and fueling its immense wealth. The journey to the estate is long, often spanning days or even weeks, across rolling hills and fertile plains. You walk, your bare feet or worn sandals offering little protection against the sharp stones and unforgiving earth, your body aching with every step. The chains that bind you to your fellow captives chafe your wrists and ankles, a constant metallic reminder of your lost freedom. Food remains meager, water scarce, and rest is a luxury granted only in brief, uncomfortable intervals, huddled together under the indifferent gaze of your guards. The sounds of the bustling city and the clanking of chains from the market are replaced by the rhythmic crunch of your footsteps on dirt roads and the weary sighs of your companions. As you finally approach the latifundium, the sheer scale of the operation is overwhelming. Fields stretch as far as the eye can see, a patchwork of green and brown, dotted with distant olive groves, vineyards, or vast expanses of grain. The air vibrates with the hum of insects, the distant lowing of cattle, and the faint, rhythmic sounds of unseen labor. But there is no beauty in this landscape for you, only the chilling promise of unending, back-breaking toil. The estate buildings are functional. Utilitarian crude barracks for the slaves, vast storage barns for grain and produce, and a larger, slightly more imposing villa for the dominus, your new master, and his villicus, the overseer. Your new home is the ergastulum, the slave barracks. It's a low, sprawling structure, often built of rough stone or timber, with small, unglazed windows that offer little light or ventilation. Inside, the air is thick with the mingled scents of unwashed bodies, stale straw, and damp earth. You are assigned a space, a narrow pallet on the floor, shared with several other slaves. Privacy is a forgotten luxury, a concept from a life that seems impossibly distant. You lay down, your muscles screaming from the journey, your mind numb, listening to the restless turning and quiet groans of your fellow captives. It's like sleeping in a perpetually crowded, unventilated barn. But instead of being a guest, you are part of the livestock. Your days begin before dawn. Roused by the harsh shouts of the villicus or his assistants, there's no time for a leisurely awakening, no moment for quiet contemplation. You stumble out of the barracks, your body stiff from a night of uncomfortable sleep, into the cool, pre-dawn air. Breakfast is a meager affair, a handful of coarse grain, perhaps a few olives, or a piece of hard bread, washed down with water. It's barely enough to fuel the immense physical exertion that awaits you under the rising sun. Then, the work begins. You are marched out to the fields, a long line of silent, weary figures, carrying your simple tools, a hoe, a sickle, a pruning knife, or a heavy shovel. The sun begins its slow ascent, painting the eastern sky with hues of orange and pink. But for you, it's not a beautiful sight, but a harbinger of the scorching heat to come. Your first task might be plowing, a grueling effort that requires immense strength and endurance. You might be yoked to a simple wooden ard, a primitive plow, alongside an ox, or even another slave, pulling the implement through the unyielding soil. Each step is a struggle, each furrow a testament to your aching muscles and the relentless demands of the villicus. If it's planting season, you spend hours bent over the earth, your back screaming in protest, pushing seeds into the freshly tilled soil. The repetitive motion is mind-numbing, but your hands move with a practiced rhythm, driven by the ever-present threat of the overseer's whip. You learn to work quickly, efficiently, for any sign of slowing is met with a sharp crack and a burning lash across your back. The dust from the dry earth coats your skin, gets into your eyes, and chokes your throat. You cough, your lungs burning, but there is no respite, no moment to catch your breath. Weeding is another endless task. You crawl along the rows, pulling stubborn weeds from around the delicate crops, your fingers raw and bleeding from thorns and sharp leaves. The sun beats down mercilessly, baking the earth and searing your skin. Sweat streams down your face, stinging your eyes, mixing with the dust to form streaks of grime. Dehydration is a constant threat, and water, when it is offered, is often warm, muddy, and barely potable, barely quenching your burning thirst. You learn to ration your sips, to make every drop count, knowing that a moment of weakness could lead to collapse under the unforgiving sun. It's like trying to cultivate a vast desert garden by hand, under constant threat of heat stroke, and your only motivation is avoiding a beating. Harvest time is the most intense period, a frantic race against the elements and the clock. You work from sunup to sundown, and often long into the night. By the flickering, smoky light of torches or oil lamps, every grain, every grape, every olive must be gathered before it spoils or is lost. Your hands become blistered and raw from the constant cutting, picking, and carrying. The sheer volume of produce is overwhelming, and the pressure to meet quotas is immense. You move like a machine, your body fueled by exhaustion and the fear of punishment, knowing that the winter stores and your very survival depend on your relentless toil. A little-known detail about Roman agricultural slavery is the use of catenae, or chains, on some field slaves, particularly those deemed rebellious or prone to escape. While not all agricultural slaves were permanently chained, those working in more remote or dangerous areas, or those with a history of defiance, might be shackled even while working or sleeping. This served as both a physical restraint and a powerful psychological deterrent, a constant reminder of their absolute lack of freedom and the severe consequences of attempting to reclaim it. Injuries are a daily occurrence, almost inevitable in this brutal environment. A slip of the sickle can gash your hand, leaving a deep, bleeding wound. A heavy load can strain your back, leaving you in agonizing pain that never truly subsides. Sunstroke can fell you in the middle of the field, leaving you unconscious and vulnerable to further harm. There are no doctors, no proper medical care. A fellow slave might try to bind your wound with a dirty rag, or offer a few words of comfort. But true medical attention is non-existent. A severe injury means you are no longer useful, and a useless slave is a dead slave. You might be left to die in the fields, or dragged back to the barracks to perish, your body discarded like so much waste. The academic debate still rages about the precise economic efficiency of slave labor in Roman agriculture. While it provided a vast, cheap workforce, scholars debate whether the low productivity per slave, the high mortality rates, and the constant need for supervision ultimately made it less efficient than free labor in the long run. Some argue that the brutal conditions and lack of incentive led to widespread inefficiency, while others point to the sheer scale of Roman agricultural output as evidence of its effectiveness. Regardless of the human cost, the living conditions in the ergastulum are squalid. The air is foul, filled with the stench of unwashed bodies, stale food, and human waste. Sanitation is primitive, leading to the rapid spread of disease among the crowded inhabitants. You sleep on straw pallets, infested with fleas and lice, your body aching, your mind restless. The nights offer little true rest, as you are constantly disturbed by the coughs and groans of your fellow slaves, or the sounds of the overseers patrolling outside, their footsteps a constant threat. Your diet is monotonous and insufficient. You eat the cheapest, most basic foods, coarse grain, often ground into a gruel, a few olives, perhaps some dried figs or beans. Meat is a rare luxury, reserved for the master's table. You are always hungry, a dull, persistent ache in your stomach that never truly goes away. This chronic malnutrition weakens your body, making you more susceptible to illness, less able to resist the demands placed upon you, and slowly eroding your very life force. It's like being on a perpetual diet where the goal isn't weight loss, but simply to avoid immediate starvation. And every meal is a grim reminder of your deprivation. The psychological toll of this existence is immense. The endless, monotonous labor grinds down your spirit. The lack of control over your own life, the constant threat of violence, the absence of hope. It slowly erodes your sense of self. You might find yourself drifting into a detached state, your mind retreating from the unbearable reality. Some slaves simply give up, their spirits broken, their bodies succumbing to exhaustion and despair. Others cling to a flicker of hope, a memory of their former life, a dream of freedom that seems impossibly distant, yet tantalizingly real. Escape is a dangerous fantasy. The estates are often vast and isolated, surrounded by miles of open country. The overseers are vigilant, and the local population, often free peasants or small landowners, is often hostile to runaway slaves, eager to claim the reward for their capture. If caught, the punishment is horrific, severe beatings, branding, or even crucifixion, a grim warning to any who might contemplate rebellion. The fear of these consequences is a powerful deterrent, binding you to your fate more effectively than any chain. Yet, even in this brutal environment, small acts of defiance or solidarity might occur. A whispered word of comfort to a fellow slave, a shared morsel of food, a moment of silent understanding. these fleeting connections are precious, a reminder that even in the depths of dehumanization, the human spirit can find ways to resist, to connect, to cling to a shred of its humanity. You might learn to communicate in subtle ways, through glances, gestures, or coded phrases, creating a secret language of shared suffering and quiet resilience. The cycle of the seasons dictates your life, but it offers no true relief. Spring brings the promise of new growth, but also the arduous labor of planting. Summer brings the scorching heat and the intense demands of harvest. Autumn brings the back-breaking work of olive pressing or grape crushing. And winter, though it offers a slight reprieve from the fields, brings the gnawing cold, the threat of hunger, and the monotonous tasks of repair and preparation. There is no true off-season, no time for rest or rejuvenation, only a relentless, unending cycle of toil. Your body, once your own, is now a tool, a machine to be worked until it breaks. Your life is measured by your productivity, your value determined by the amount of grain you can harvest, the number of olives you can pick, the strength you can exert. There is no recognition for your suffering, no reward for your endurance, only the expectation of continued labor, day after day, until you can no longer stand, and as the sun sets on another endless day in the fields, casting long shadows across the rows of crops, you lay down your weary body, covered in dust and sweat, your muscles screaming in protest. You understand, with a chilling clarity, why being a Roman slave was worse than you think, especially when your fate led you to the agricultural estates. It is a life of relentless toil, of constant pain, of profound dehumanization, all for the benefit of a system that sees you as nothing more than property. The glory of Rome, built on the backs of countless individuals like you, feels like a cruel, mocking whisper on the wind. Your new master has made his choice, and it is not the dark, suffocating depths of the mines, nor the endless, sun-baked toil of the agricultural estates. Instead, you are part of a smaller, cleaner procession, led through the bustling, noisy streets of a Roman city, the sounds of carts and hawkers replacing the desolate quiet of the countryside. You are led through imposing gates, past manicured gardens, and into a grand villa, its walls adorned with vibrant frescoes, its floors gleaming with intricate mosaics. The air here is filled with the scent of expensive perfumes, exotic spices, and burning lamp oil, a stark contrast to the stench of the barracks or the dust of the fields. Your new surroundings, at first glance, seem to offer a semblance of comfort, a gilded cage. But you quickly learn that this veneer of luxury hides a different, often more insidious, kind of servitude. A different set of chains that bind your very soul. Your new home is not a barracks, but a series of small, often windowless rooms, or perhaps a designated corner within a larger bustling space, shared with other domestic slaves. Your bed might be a simple cot, or a pallet on the floor, but it is indoors, away from the biting cold or the scorching sun. The food, while still basic, is often better than the meager gruel of the fields, consisting of leftovers from your master's lavish table, or simple rations of bread, olives, and perhaps some cheese. You might even have access to clean water, a luxury you had almost forgotten. These seemingly improved conditions, however, are a common historical fact. Domestic slaves, particularly those in wealthy households, often lived in closer proximity to their masters and had better material conditions than their counterparts in mines or agriculture. But their lives were still utterly devoid of freedom and subject to constant, intimate surveillance. Your days begin early, but without the harsh, immediate demands of the villicus in the fields. Instead, you are roused by the subtle sounds of the household, stirring the rustle of fine silks, the soft murmur of voices, the distant clatter of pottery from the kitchen. Your duties are varied, often requiring a degree of skill, attentiveness, and a sharp memory. If you are a woman, you might be tasked with weaving fine cloth on a loom, preparing elaborate meals in the bustling kitchen, or tending to the mistress's personal needs, from dressing her intricate hair to selecting her delicate jewelry, accompanying her on social visits, or even acting as a personal confidant. If you are a man, you might serve as a personal attendant, a scribe meticulously copying texts, a tutor for the children, a barber, a masseur, or a porter, carrying messages and running errands through the labyrinthine streets of the city. The range of tasks is vast, reflecting the complex, luxurious needs of a wealthy Roman family, demanding a constant state of readiness and a keen eye for detail. The illusion of comfort is strong, almost intoxicating. You wear a cleaner tunic, perhaps even sandals on your feet. You are bathed more regularly, and the constant grime of the fields or the dust of the mines is replaced by the dust of the household and the scent of expensive oils. You might even learn to speak Latin fluently, to read and write, or to play a musical instrument, skills that would have been unimaginable in your previous life. Your mind, once dulled by endless physical labor, begins to sharpen, adapting to the intellectual and social demands of your new role. You learn the intricate social graces of the Roman elite, the proper way to address your master, the subtle nuances of courtly etiquette. It's like getting promoted from manual labor to a white-collar job in a fancy office. But your boss still owns your soul, and your entire existence is still fundamentally precarious. However, beneath this glittering veneer of civility and comfort lies a profound, chilling vulnerability. Your life is still entirely at the whim of your master and mistress. Their moods, their desires, their sudden fits of anger, their capricious changes of mind. These dictate your every movement, your every thought, your very existence. A misplaced item, a spilled cup of wine, a perceived slight, a moment of clumsiness, or simply a bad day for your owner can lead to swift and brutal punishment. The whip, though perhaps used less frequently than in the fields or mines, is still a very real threat, its presence a constant, chilling reminder of your subservience. You learn to anticipate their needs, to read their expressions, to become a shadow, always present, but never truly seen, always ready to serve, always prepared for the worst. A little-known detail about Roman domestic slavery is the concept of peculium. This was a small allowance or fund that some masters allowed their slaves to manage. While still legally the master's property, a slave with a peculium could use it to conduct small businesses, save money, and in rare cases, even purchase their own freedom. However, the peculium was always ultimately at the master's discretion, could be revoked at any time, and was often insufficient to truly buy freedom, making it a fragile and often deceptive path to independence, a glimmer of hope that rarely materialized into true liberty. The psychological toll of domestic servitude is unique, and arguably, in some ways, more insidious than the physical exhaustion of the mines or fields. Here, it is a constant mental strain, a perpetual state of hyper-vigilance. You are always on, always performing, always aware that your every action, every word, every gesture is observed, judged, and potentially misinterpreted. The pressure to be perfect, to avoid mistakes, to anticipate every need, is immense. You live in a state of perpetual anxiety, never truly relaxed, never truly safe, your nerves constantly frayed. You might witness other slaves being punished, their screams echoing through the villa, a chilling reminder of your own precarious position, a constant reinforcement of the absolute power your master holds. It's like being a live-in personal assistant for a demanding, unpredictable billionaire. But they can legally beat you, and you can never quit. The relationships within the household are complex and often fraught with tension. You might develop a grudging camaraderie with other slaves, sharing whispered complaints, small acts of kindness, and moments of silent understanding in the dark corners of the villa. But there is also intense rivalry, jealousy, and the constant fear of betrayal. A slave might inform on another to gain favor with the master, to avoid punishment themselves, or to climb the precarious ladder of household hierarchy. Trust is a dangerous luxury, and true friendship is rare, often existing only in the most clandestine and fragile forms. It's like living in a house full of roommates who are all secretly competing for the landlord's favor, and the loser gets sold. The children of the household, your young masters and mistresses, can be a source of both unexpected comfort and casual cruelty. Some might treat you with a degree of kindness, having grown up with you as a constant, familiar presence. Others might mimic the behavior of their parents, exercising their nascent power with casual brutality, seeing you as little more than a plaything or an object to be commanded. You are expected to cater to their whims, to tolerate their tantrums, and to endure their occasional acts of malice. For to offend a child of the master is to invite the swift and disproportionate wrath of the entire household. The academic debate still rages about the precise nature of the familia urbana, urban slave household, and how much agency, if any, individual domestic slaves could exert within their roles. While some scholars emphasize the absolute power of the master and the inherent vulnerability of slaves, others point to evidence of complex social dynamics, personal relationships, and even a degree of influence that some highly skilled or trusted slaves might have wielded within the household, suggesting a more nuanced, albeit still oppressive, reality, your body. Though not subjected to the same physical extremes as a mine slave or an agricultural laborer, is still not your own. You are always available, always on call, your time and your person entirely at your master's disposal. This constant availability, the lack of personal space or time, is a form of subtle, pervasive control. You might be woken in the middle of the night for a trivial task, or forced to attend to your master's needs at any hour. Your sleep never truly your own. Your rest always conditional. Your body is a resource, and its energy is to be expended at your master's command, regardless of your personal needs or desires. Despite the overwhelming odds, the spirit of rebellion never entirely dies. It flickers in the eyes of a fellow slave, in a shared moment of silent understanding, in the quiet determination to simply survive another day. You might not actively participate in a grand revolt, but your very endurance, your refusal to be completely broken, is a form of resistance in itself. a silent defiance against a system that seeks to strip you of everything. You cling to your humanity, to your memories, to the knowledge that you are more than just property, that your spirit remains unbroken, even if your body is chained. Your training begins immediately, brutal and relentless, stripping away any lingering vestiges of your former life. You are stripped of your former identity, your old name discarded, replaced by a new, often mocking or generic gladiator name. You are taught to fight, not with the nuanced tactics of a soldier, but with the raw, visceral aggression of a performer. The trainers, known as lanisti or their assistants, are often former gladiators themselves, their bodies scarred, their faces hard, their eyes reflecting a lifetime of violence. They show no mercy, pushing you to your physical and mental limits, demanding absolute obedience and unflinching brutality. You learn to wield a sword, a trident, a net, a dagger, a shield. Whatever weapon is assigned to your chosen gladiator type, your body protesting with every movement, your muscles screaming, your hands blistering, but you are forced to continue, driven by the whip and the threat of worse. Your life in the arena is a constant dance with death, a brutal, dehumanizing existence where your body is a tool for entertainment, and your fate is decided by the fickle whims of a bloodthirsty crowd. You are a pawn in a deadly game, a living sacrifice to the Roman thirst for spectacle, your screams and your blood the currency of their amusement. And as you lay in your cell, listening to the distant sounds of the city, you understand, with chilling clarity, why being a Roman slave was worse than you think, especially when your terrible fate led you to the gladiatorial arena. It is a life of constant pain, profound fear, and a desperate struggle for survival, where the only true victory is to live another day, only to face the same terrifying reality once more. The internal divisions among slaves also complicate resistance. Slaves from different regions, speaking different languages, with different skills and experiences, often struggled to form a unified front. Domestic slaves might fear the harsh conditions of the fields or mines, while agricultural slaves might resent the comparatively better conditions of domestic slaves. This fragmentation, often exploited by masters, made large-scale, sustained rebellion incredibly difficult, a constant internal struggle that undermined collective action. It's like trying to organize a massive protest, but everyone speaks a different language, has different grievances, and half the participants are secretly working for the police. The fear of being sold again, perhaps to a brothel, to a harsher master, or to a fate even worse than your current one, is a constant shadow. You live with the knowledge that your fate can change at any moment, that your life can be uprooted and thrown into an even more terrifying situation. This uncertainty, this complete lack of control over your own future, adds another layer of anxiety to your already precarious existence, making it impossible to plan, to hope, to dream. For male slaves, too, the threat of sexual abuse existed, though perhaps less frequently documented in historical sources than for women. Young boys were particularly vulnerable, often forced into pederastic relationships with their masters. Adult male slaves could also be subject to their masters' desires, or forced to work as prostitutes in brothels owned by their masters. The shame and humiliation, the profound sense of powerlessness, and the lasting psychological damage are no less devastating, stripping away their dignity and sense of self. Your body is a tool, and its integrity is entirely at the discretion of your owner. A chilling reality that transcends gender. Even if you never participate in a direct act of rebellion, you learn to navigate the system, to find small ways to assert your agency. You might feign illness to avoid a particularly arduous task, or subtly damage a tool to slow down production. You might steal small amounts of food or supplies, a tiny act of reclamation against those who own everything. These are not glorious acts of heroism, but quiet, everyday forms of resistance, born of desperation and a fierce desire to survive. A silent battle for dignity. The psychological toll is immense, a constant, gnawing presence that slowly erodes your sanity. You live with the constant, chilling knowledge that your life is not your own, that you are being trained for a brutal, public death. The fear of the arena, of the roaring crowd, of the cold steel of your opponent's weapon is a constant, pervasive presence that never truly leaves you. You might dream of escape, of rebellion, of a life beyond these walls, but the reality of your situation, the high, unyielding walls, the vigilant guards, the brutal punishments for defiance, crushes such hopes, leaving you trapped in a psychological cage as well as a physical one. You are a prisoner, not just of your chains, but of your grim, predetermined fate. The silence surrounding sexual exploitation is deafening. There is no one to tell, no one to confide in, no one who will listen or offer help. The other slaves, if they have experienced similar abuses, are often too afraid to speak, too broken by their own suffering, or too wary of further punishment. You bear your burden alone, the shame and trauma locked away in the deepest recesses of your mind, unshared, unacknowledged. This forced silence perpetuates the cycle of abuse, making it even more difficult to escape, ensuring that the suffering remains hidden and unaddressed. The power of hope, however fragile, is what sustains you. The dream of manumission, of gaining your freedom, however distant, is a guiding light that keeps you going. You might hear stories of slaves who were freed, who managed to build new lives, to become freedmen or freedwomen, a testament to the possibility of escape from bondage. This hope, however faint, provides a reason to endure, a reason to continue fighting, even if the fight is only within your own mind, a silent rebellion against despair. You've survived the chilling spectacle of the arena, the brutal training, and the constant dance with death for the amusement of Roman crowds. You've seen how your body can be a tool for labor, a weapon for entertainment, and a vessel for pain. You've learned to suppress your fear, to channel your pain into aggression, to become the brutal, entertaining machine your Roman masters demand. But there is another, perhaps even more insidious, aspect of your terrible fate as an ancient Roman slave, one that strips away not just your freedom, but your very dignity and autonomy, leaving invisible scars far deeper than any whip could inflict. Your body, your very person, is not your own. And for many, this meant facing the grim reality of sexual exploitation, a dehumanizing experience that permeated every facet of their enslaved existence. You thought you had found a semblance of comfort, a gilded cage within the Roman household. Far from the dust of the mines or the sun-baked fields, you had learned the subtle art of domestic servitude, the constant vigilance, the quiet obedience, but the capricious nature of your Roman masters, their endless desire for entertainment, and the brutal whims of fate have conspired to rip that fragile illusion away. One day, you are serving wine at a lavish banquet, your hands deftly refilling a goblet for your master. The next, you are being led, not to another villa, nor to the bustling marketplace, but to a place where the roar of the crowd replaces the murmur of conversation, and the scent of expensive perfume is overtaken by the metallic tang of blood and the acrid smell of fear. You are destined for the gladiatorial arena, a place where your life becomes a bloody spectacle, a grim dance with death for the amusement of the masses. This forced participation in gladiatorial combat for public entertainment was a common historical fact, a horrific aspect of Roman slavery that captured the imagination, but masked immense suffering and systemic dehumanization. The Roman legal system, while offering no protection to slaves, did have provisions for manumission, the act of granting freedom. A master could free a slave through a will, by a public declaration, or by a simple ceremony. However, freedmen and freedwomen still faced significant social and legal limitations, often remaining bound to their former masters through various obligations. Freedom, even when granted, was often a complex and conditional state, not a complete liberation. You might witness the abuse of other slaves, their cries echoing through the villa, a chilling reminder of your own vulnerability and the pervasive nature of this horror. The helplessness you feel in these moments is profound, a desperate longing to intervene, to offer protection, but knowing that to do so would only invite the same fate upon yourself, or worse, upon those you try to protect. This shared experience of witnessing and enduring abuse creates a grim, unspoken bond among the enslaved, a silent understanding of their collective suffering. The discipline is absolute, enforced with an iron fist. Any hesitation, any sign of weakness, any failure to obey a command is met with swift and brutal punishment. The whip is a constant companion, its sting a sharp, burning reminder of your subservience, its crack echoing through the training yard. You are taught to kill, to fight without mercy, to show no compassion for your opponent, for sentiment is a weakness that will get you killed. Your humanity is slowly stripped away, replaced by the instinct of a killer, a performer, a living spectacle. You learn to suppress your fear, to channel your pain into aggression, to become the brutal, entertaining machine your Roman masters demand. Your life as a Roman slave is a constant negotiation with pain, fear, and the overwhelming power of your masters. The brutal discipline you face is designed to break your spirit, to turn you into a docile, obedient tool. But in the quiet corners of your mind, and in the shared glances with your fellow sufferers, the flame of resistance, however small, continues to burn. It is a testament to the enduring human spirit, a silent defiance against a system that sought to strip away every last shred of your humanity, but ultimately failed to extinguish the spark of hope. And as you endure another day, another punishment, another moment of despair, you cling to that flicker of hope, knowing that even in the darkest of times, the dream of freedom can never be entirely extinguished. You are back in the ludus, recovering from your wounds, or perhaps you have been sold again, this time to a wealthy Roman who sees you not just as a worker, a fighter, or a domestic servant, but as an object of desire, a commodity to be used for pleasure. The air around you shifts, becoming heavy with an unspoken threat, a chilling awareness that your physical being is now subject to the whims and desires of your owner. With no recourse, no protection, This widespread sexual exploitation of slaves was a common historical fact in ancient Rome, a deeply ingrained aspect of the institution of slavery that reflected the absolute, unchecked power masters held over their human property. Regardless of age or gender, the very concept of family, of love, of intimate relationships is twisted and distorted by your enslaved status. If you manage to form a bond with another slave, it is always precarious, always at the mercy of your master's whims. You can be separated at any moment, sold to different owners, your nascent family torn apart without a second thought. The ability to form lasting, meaningful connections, to build a stable family, is severely hampered by your lack of freedom, your constant vulnerability. It's like trying to build a sand castle on a beach where the tide keeps coming in and washing it away. But the sand castle is your entire future. You've battled the lash, the chains, the psychological torment of constant surveillance, and the crushing consequences of any attempt at defiance. You've clung to the fragile hope of resistance, a quiet flicker in the overwhelming darkness of your servitude. You've seen the brutal discipline designed to break your spirit and the terrifying consequences of rebellion. But even as your body aches from punishment and your spirit struggles to maintain its defiance, you realize that the most insidious enemies in this Roman world are not the guards, nor the torturers, but the unseen killers that thrive in the filth, dampness, and despair of your confinement, disease, and despair itself. Your ordeal is far from over. It has merely shifted from direct infliction to a slow, agonizing consumption by the very environment around you. This constant battle against disease, combined with the profound psychological toll of slavery, was a common historical fact for Roman slaves, often leading to their demise long before any formal execution or release. The relationships with your fellow gladiators are complex, often fraught with tension and a strange, grim camaraderie. You are rivals, destined to face each other in the arena, perhaps even to kill each other for the crowd's amusement. But you are also comrades in suffering, sharing the same grim fate, the same brutal training, the same pervasive fear. You might form grudging friendships, sharing whispered words of comfort, a knowing glance, a small act of kindness in the darkness of your shared cell. These fleeting moments of human connection are precious, a lifeline in a world that constantly seeks to dehumanize you, a reminder that you are not entirely alone in your torment. It's like being on a competitive reality show with your best friends, but the grand prize is survival, and the losing side gets eaten by a lion. Awkward, indeed. The isolation from your former life is complete. You are cut off from your family, your culture, your language, your past. The memories of your former life begin to fade, replaced by the relentless demands of your present. You become a Roman slave, absorbed into the vast, impersonal machinery of the empire. Your identity slowly eroded, your personal history erased. You are a new person, a new identity forged in the crucible of servitude. You lie on the cold, hard floor, whether in a crowded barrack, a dark corner of a workshop, or a small shared space in a domestic household. Your body is a mass of aches and raw sores from the chains, the beatings, and the relentless labor. The air, already thick with the mingled scents of unwashed bodies, stale food, and human waste, now feels heavier, more oppressive, clinging to your lungs with every shallow breath. You try to breathe shallowly, to avoid inhaling the foulness, but it's impossible. Your wounds, often left untended, quickly begin to fester, turning angry red, then purple, pus oozing from their raw edges. The pain is a dull throb, a constant companion that never leaves you. And you know, instinctively, that infection is setting in, a silent, deadly process. It's like recovering from major surgery in a perpetually overflowing dumpster. But the dumpster is also your bedroom, and there are no doctors, just the chilling certainty of decay. The legacy of this exploitation extends beyond the individual. It impacts generations, shaping the lives of children born into slavery, perpetuating a cycle of trauma and dehumanization. The Roman Empire, in all its grandeur and its power, was built not just on the labor of slaves, but on the systematic degradation and exploitation of their bodies and their spirits. A dark foundation beneath its glittering facade. For female slaves, the threat is constant, pervasive, and terrifying. You learn to walk with your head down, to avoid eye contact, to make yourself as inconspicuous as possible, to blend into the shadows of the household or the bustling streets. But sometimes, no amount of caution, no amount of invisibility is enough. Your master, his sons, his male relatives, his guests, even his freedmen, anyone in a position of power might decide to exercise their perceived right to your body. There is no consent, no refusal, no escape. To resist could mean severe punishment, a brutal beating, a night in chains, or even death. The fear is a cold, persistent knot in your stomach, a constant companion that never truly leaves you, a shadow that follows your every step. Imagine living in a perpetual state of dread, knowing that at any moment, your personal space, your very being, could be violated without consequence, and your cries for help would fall on deaf ears. It's like being in a never-ending, inescapable nightmare where your body is not your own, and every interaction carries a hidden threat. The lack of sanitation is a profound torment, a constant source of degradation. You are forced to relieve yourself where you are, your waste accumulating around you, adding to the stench and the filth that permeates your living space. There is no clean water for washing, no way to clean your body or your meager clothing. Your skin, constantly damp and covered in grime, develops bed sores that fester and deepen, inviting infection. The air you breathe is thick with pathogens, and every breath is a risk, a potential invitation for illness to take root in your already weakened body. You are living in a cesspool, a breeding ground for sickness, and there is no escape from its putrid embrace. You learn to find small moments of solace, small acts of resistance, a stolen moment of quiet in the garden, a shared glance of understanding with another slave, a perfectly executed task that brings a rare word of praise. These are the tiny victories that allow you to endure, to cling to a shred of your humanity in a world that constantly seeks to strip it away. You find comfort in the smallest gestures, the most fleeting connections, for these are the only true moments of personal agency you possess. And as the day ends, and the villa settles into a deceptive quiet, you retreat to your small, shared space, your body weary, your mind exhausted by the constant vigilance. You close your eyes, but sleep offers little true escape. The memories, the fears, the profound sense of violation linger in your mind, haunting your dreams, a constant reminder of the horrors you endure, you understand, with chilling clarity, why being a Roman slave was worse than you think, especially when your body was not your own. It is a life where your dignity is constantly under assault, where your personal autonomy is non-existent, and where true freedom, in every sense of the word, remains an elusive, painful dream, forever out of reach. Then comes the itching, a pervasive, maddening torment that drives you to distraction. Your skin crawls, your scalp tingles, and you know, instinctively, that you are infested. Lice, fleas, and other parasites, thriving in the unhygienic conditions and the close proximity of so many bodies, have made your body their new home. They bite, they crawl, they burrow, their constant activity adding another layer of misery to your existence. You try to scratch, to rub, to alleviate the torment, but your hands are often chained, or too weak, or simply too dirty, and the relief is fleeting at best. The itching is relentless, a constant, irritating reminder of your degradation and the unseen enemies that feast upon you. The academic debate still rages about the precise social origins of gladiators and the motivations for entering the arena. While many were indeed slaves, scholars debate the proportion of free volunteers, condemned criminals, and prisoners of war, and how these different groups experienced life and death in the arena. The exact motivations for voluntary gladiatorship, beyond financial gain or escaping a worse fate, are also a subject of ongoing discussion, with some suggesting a desire for fame or a unique form of honor. The psychological trauma of such experiences is profound, leaving scars that run far deeper than any physical wound. You learn to detach, to separate your mind from your body, to become an observer of your own suffering, a desperate coping mechanism to survive the unbearable. The violation is not just physical, it is a profound assault on your spirit, stripping away your sense of self-worth, your dignity, your very humanity. You might feel a deep shame, a pervasive sense of defilement, even though the act is entirely against your will, a cruel irony of your powerlessness. These invisible wounds fester, impacting your ability to trust, to form genuine connections, and to ever truly feel safe again. Disease, the silent killer, begins its slow, agonizing work, often long before any physical punishment or direct violence can claim you. The contaminated food and water, the constant exposure to filth, the weakened state of your body from malnutrition and relentless labor, all conspire against you. You are plunged into cycles of fever and chills, your body racked with tremors, your mind drifting in and out of delirium. Dysentery, caused by the contaminated water and food, becomes a constant companion, its debilitating grip leaving you weak, dehydrated, and in constant pain. Your stomach cramps, your bowels churn, and you are consumed by incessant vomiting and diarrhea, your body wasting away with terrifying speed. You've survived the chilling spectacle of the arena, the brutal training, and the constant dance with death for the amusement of Roman crowds. You've seen how your body can be a tool for labor, a weapon for entertainment, and a vessel for pain. You've learned to suppress your fear, to channel your pain into aggression, to become the brutal, entertaining machine your Roman masters demand. You've also faced the profound violation of sexual exploitation, the chilling reality that your dignity and autonomy are non-existent, leaving invisible scars far deeper than any whip could inflict. But even in this abyss of dehumanization, a flicker of defiance, a spark of resistance, sometimes ignites. Yet, The Roman system of slavery is designed to crush such sparks with overwhelming force through brutal discipline and the chilling consequences of rebellion. You learn that the price of defiance is often unbearable, but the whispers of hope, of a life free from chains, can be a powerful, dangerous lure. A common historical fact is that gladiators were not always slaves. While the vast majority were indeed enslaved individuals, captured in war, condemned as criminals, or purchased from slave markets, some free men, often impoverished or seeking fame and fortune, voluntarily entered the arena by signing contracts. However, even these volunteers were bound by strict contracts and faced the same brutal training and life-threatening combat as their enslaved counterparts. Their freedom was often a cruel illusion, a desperate gamble that frequently ended in a bloody death. A common historical fact is that Roman slaves, particularly those in large labor forces like mines or agricultural estates, had significantly shorter lifespans than free Romans. Their high mortality rates were primarily due to overwork, malnutrition, and rampant disease, rather than direct violence, though violence certainly contributed to their overall suffering and vulnerability. The journey to the gladiatorial school, the ludus, is different from any you've known. You are not shackled in a long line of weary laborers, nor are you transported with the casual indifference of a domestic slave. Instead, you are often moved with a grim sense of purpose, perhaps even a cruel pride from your new owner, who sees in you a potential investment, a source of future glory and profit. The air grows heavy with a sense of foreboding, a palpable mix of expectation and dread that clings to your very skin. You see other men, some with hardened, scarred faces, their eyes reflecting years of brutal training and combat. Others with the wide, terrified eyes of newly captured souls like yourself, still bewildered by their sudden, terrifying fate. They are all here for the same reason: to be trained, to be broken, to be turned into instruments of death, living weapons for the arena. Your days are filled with relentless labor, whether in the fields, the mines, or the domestic household. Every task is performed under the watchful eye of an overseer, a villicus on the estate, a dispensator in the villa, or a lanista in the ludus. Their authority is absolute, their methods often cruel, and their presence a constant, chilling reminder of your subservience. You learn to move with a practiced efficiency, to anticipate commands, to avoid drawing attention to yourself. But even the most compliant slave can make a mistake, a moment of fatigue, a misstep, a perceived slowness, or simply a bad day for your master or overseer that can trigger a swift and brutal response. This constant threat of punishment, often arbitrary and disproportionate, was a common historical fact. Discipline was central to maintaining control over the vast enslaved population in ancient Rome, ensuring their obedience through fear. Your body, already a broken thing from labor, torture, and deprivation, offers little resistance. Your immune system, weakened by chronic malnutrition, relentless stress, and the constant onslaught of pathogens, is unable to fight off the infections. A simple cold can turn into a deadly pneumonia. A minor cut can become a life-threatening infection, leading to gangrene and a slow, agonizing death. Your organs begin to fail, your breathing becomes shallow, and your heart struggles to maintain its rhythm. You are slowly, inexorably, being consumed from within, your life force draining from you with each passing day. For male slaves, too, the threat of sexual exploitation exists. though perhaps less frequently documented in historical sources than for women, or often presented differently. Young boys were particularly vulnerable, often purchased specifically for their beauty, and forced into pederastic relationships with their masters, a common practice in Roman aristocratic circles. Adult male slaves could also be subject to their masters' desires, or forced to work as prostitutes in brothels owned by their masters. Their bodies commodified for profit. The shame and humiliation, the profound sense of powerlessness, and the lasting psychological damage are no less devastating, stripping away their dignity and sense of self, turning them into objects of pleasure rather than human beings. Finally, the day comes. It is not a day like any other. The air in the ludus is charged with a different kind of energy, a tense anticipation. You are led out of your cell, dressed in your gladiator armor, the heavy metal and leather a grim weight on your shoulders, a stark contrast to the light tunic you once wore as a domestic slave. The sounds of the city, once a distant hum, are now muffled by the overwhelming roar of the crowd, a deafening wave of anticipation that washes over you, chilling you to the bone. You are marched through the streets, a spectacle even before you reach the arena, the eyes of the Roman citizens, both rich and poor, fixed upon you with a mixture of morbid curiosity and bloodthirsty excitement. Some cheer, some jeer, some simply stare with a chilling, detached fascination. The academic debate still rages about the precise types of diseases prevalent among Roman slaves and their mortality rates. While historical accounts often mention slave fever or prison fever, scholars are using archaeological evidence, such as skeletal remains from slave burial sites and modern epidemiological knowledge, to identify specific pathogens and understand the complex interplay of malnutrition, poor sanitation, overcrowding, and brutal working conditions in contributing to the high death tolls among the enslaved population. The whip, the flagellum, is a constant, terrifying presence in your life. Its crack echoes through the air, a sound that sends shivers down your spine, a visceral reminder of its power. A single lash can tear flesh, leaving a burning welt that serves as a grim reminder of your subservience, a visible mark of your owner's power. Multiple lashes can flay the skin from your back, leaving you bleeding, in agony, and susceptible to infection in the unsanitary conditions. You witness other slaves being beaten, their screams piercing the air, their bodies contorting in pain, their pleas for mercy ignored. The sight is a chilling warning, a visceral lesson in obedience, a stark demonstration of what awaits you if you defy. Imagine your boss giving you a performance review, but instead of a stern talking to, it's a literal whipping that leaves you scarred for life. Makes those annual appraisals seem pretty tame, doesn't it? The appearances of comfort are often just that, appearances. You might wear fine clothes, but they are livery, marking you as property, a uniform of servitude. You might eat well, but it is sustenance for labor, not for enjoyment, a means to keep you productive. You might live in a grand villa, surrounded by luxury, but you are a prisoner within its opulent walls, your movements restricted, your freedom non-existent. The golden cage, however beautiful, is still a cage, its bars invisible, but no less confining. It's like being given a fancy uniform for your terrible, inescapable job, but you still have to clean toilets with a smile. and your boss can do whatever they want to you. The psychological impact of this constant battle against unseen enemies is immense, adding another layer to your despair. You live in a state of perpetual disgust, your senses assaulted by the filth and the stench, the fear of disease, of the rats, of the crawling insects, adds another layer of terror to your confinement. You are constantly aware of your own body's deterioration, of the slow, agonizing process of decay. This relentless torment erodes your sanity, making you irritable, disoriented, and increasingly desperate, blurring the lines between physical and mental suffering. A little-known detail about Roman law regarding sexual exploitation of slaves is that while masters had absolute rights over their slaves' bodies, there were some very limited and often ignored legal distinctions. For instance, a master could be punished for prostituting a free person who had been illegally enslaved, or for forcing a slave who had been promised manumission into prostitution. However, for the vast majority of slaves, these protections were non-existent or impossible to enforce, leaving them utterly defenseless against their owners' desires. It was a legal loophole that offered no real protection to those who needed it most. Beyond the whip, other forms of punishment are employed, designed to inflict maximum pain, humiliation, and terror, both physically and psychologically. You might be hung by your wrists for hours, your arms aching, your body racked with cramps, your shoulders threatening to dislocate. You might be branded with hot irons, a permanent, searing mark of your enslaved status, a visible sign of your owner's property that you can never hide. For more serious offenses, or for those deemed particularly troublesome, you could be sent to the pistrinum, a grinding mill, where you would be forced to work in chains, often blindfolded, pushing heavy millstones in a dark, suffocating space, a punishment reserved for the most defiant or troublesome slaves, a slow, agonizing grind towards oblivion. Sleep, which was already a fleeting luxury, now becomes an agonizing struggle. You are constantly disturbed by the itching of parasites, the scuttling of rats, the gnawing pain of your infections, and the relentless demands of your ailing body. Your dreams, if they come at all, are often nightmares of crawling insects and suffocating filth, offering no true escape from your waking torment. You are caught in a vicious cycle of pain and exhaustion, with no hope of true rest. Your diet is carefully controlled, designed not for your pleasure, but to build muscle and, ironically, a layer of fat. This fat, known as gladiator fat, was believed to provide a layer of protection against shallow cuts and to make wounds appear more dramatic, enhancing the spectacle for the crowd. You eat a coarse, high-carbohydrate diet, often a gruel made from barley and beans, sometimes supplemented with dried fruit or cheese. Meat is a rare luxury, reserved for special occasions or to reward exceptional performance. You are fed to be strong, to be a formidable opponent, but never to be truly satisfied. Always on the edge of hunger. It's like being on a strict, unappetizing diet for a brutal athletic competition. But the prize is not a trophy. It's just not dying today. You enter the arena, the vast elliptical space of the Colosseum or a local amphitheater, its towering walls seeming to swallow the sky. The sunlight, once a welcome sight, now feels blinding, reflecting off the white, blood-stained sand of the arena floor. The roar of the crowd is deafening. 1,000 voices united in their thirst for blood and spectacle, a primal sound that vibrates through your very bones. you stand before them, a tiny figure in a vast, intimidating space, your heart pounding like a war drum against your ribs. You raise your weapon, salute the Emperor if he is present, uttering the chilling phrase, Ave Imperator, morituri te salutant, Hail, Emperor. Those who are about to die salute you, and prepare for the fight of your life. Your captors, the overseers and jailers, rarely intervene in your suffering from disease. They might occasionally throw in a new handful of straw, or empty a bucket of waste, but true sanitation or medical care is non-existent. They are often hardened to the suffering of their prisoners, seeing them as little more than disposable tools. Their indifference is a chilling reminder of your utter powerlessness, your complete abandonment. A final act of dehumanization. The reasons for punishment can be trivial, almost absurd: a broken tool, a spilled amphora of wine, a moment of unauthorized rest, a perceived insolence, or simply a bad mood from your master or overseer. There is no justice, no appeal, no one to hear your side of the story, no legal recourse for your suffering. Your owner's word is law, and their power over your body is absolute, unquestioned. You learn to suppress your anger, your frustration, your despair, for any outward display of emotion can be interpreted as defiance, inviting further brutality, a cycle of pain and submission. The children born of such unions, if they survive the perils of infancy, are also slaves, inheriting their mother's status. They are a constant, painful reminder of the circumstances of their birth, a living testament to your lack of control over your own body and your own future, and the perpetuation of your terrible fate. You might try to protect them, to shield them from the harsh realities of their existence, to offer them what little comfort you can. But you are ultimately powerless against the system that binds them, condemning them to the same life of servitude. The sounds of your own body, the gurgling of your stomach, the rasp of your breath, the constant coughing, become your new reality. You are a symphony of sickness, a testament to the brutal efficiency of the Roman system in consuming its inhabitants. You are slowly becoming one with the filth, your body breaking down, your spirit fading, a living testament to the horrors of your existence. And then there is the ever-present, chilling threat of sexual exploitation. For female slaves, particularly, this is a grim and widespread reality. Your body is considered property, a commodity, and your master, or even his sons, his guests, or other powerful men in the household, might exercise their perceived right to it. There is no consent, no refusal, no escape. To resist could mean severe punishment, a brutal beating, or even death. The psychological trauma of such experiences is profound, leaving invisible scars that run far deeper than any physical wound, a constant reminder of your utter powerlessness and the complete violation of your personal autonomy. This dehumanizing aspect of Roman slavery was widespread, a dark stain on the empire's history, often hidden behind the walls of seemingly respectable villas. A little-known detail about Roman slave punishment is the use of the furca, a heavy wooden fork-shaped collar worn around the neck and shoulders. This device, often used for slaves who had attempted to escape or were deemed particularly unruly, made it difficult to run, lie down comfortably, or even eat, serving as a constant, humiliating physical restraint and a public mark of disgrace. It was essentially a medieval version of a cone of shame, but for humans, designed to inflict perpetual discomfort and public humiliation, and far less cute. A little-known detail about Roman slave health is the phenomenon of pica, an eating disorder characterized by an appetite for non-nutritive substances like dirt or clay. While sometimes a cultural practice, in the context of slavery, it was often a symptom of severe nutritional deficiencies, particularly iron deficiency, as slaves desperately tried to find minerals their bodies craved from their environment, further highlighting their extreme deprivation. The ludus itself is a fortress, a grim utilitarian complex designed for one purpose: to forge killers. High, unyielding walls, thick, iron-bound gates, and vigilant guards ensure that escape is a near impossibility. Inside, the sounds are constant, a cacophony of violence and exertion, the rhythmic clang of steel on steel as trainees spar, the sharp shouts of trainers, the guttural grunts of men in exertion, and sometimes the sharp crack of a whip or a sudden, piercing scream of pain from a training accident. The smell is a pervasive mix of sweat, blood, leather, stale straw, and the unique, pungent odor of fear that seems to seep from the very stones. Your new home is a small, cramped cell, often shared with several other gladiators, a space barely large enough to lie down. The straw on the floor is rough, often damp, the air stale and heavy, and the darkness absolute when the heavy wooden door is closed, sealing you in a tomb-like existence. It's like a really intense, inescapable military boot camp. But instead of graduating to freedom, your ultimate goal is to die gloriously for public entertainment. The Roman concept of patria potestas, the absolute power of the male head of the household over his family and slaves, meant that a master's authority was virtually unchecked. There was no one to appeal to, no court that would hear your plea, no law that protected you from your owner's desires. Your body was property, to be used, abused, or discarded as your master saw fit, with no legal repercussions. This legal framework cemented your vulnerability, leaving you utterly defenseless, your life and personhood entirely at the mercy of another. The hope that once flickered within you, fueled by the dream of freedom or the possibility of rescue, is slowly extinguished by the relentless onslaught of disease and despair. Your spirit, once defiant, begins to crack under the constant torment. You are becoming a broken thing, a shadow of your former self, a silent testament to the brutal efficiency of Roman slavery, a life slowly fading into oblivion. The psychological toll of constant punishment and the pervasive threat of it is immense, slowly eroding your sanity. You live in a state of perpetual fear, your nerves frayed, your senses heightened, constantly hypervigilant. Every unexpected sound, every sudden movement from your master or overseer sends a jolt of anxiety through you, making your heart pound. You become hypervigilant, always scanning your environment, always anticipating the next blow, the next command, the next wave of pain. This constant stress erodes your mental health, leading to chronic anxiety, depression, profound learned helplessness, and a pervasive sense of dread that never truly leaves you. The combat is brutal, chaotic, and terrifying. You face an opponent, another human being, perhaps a fellow slave from your ludus, perhaps a condemned criminal, perhaps even a free man driven to this desperate end. You fight not just for your life, but for the entertainment of the crowd. Every blow, every parry, every thrust met with cheers or groans from the stands. The sand quickly becomes stained with blood, the air thick with the metallic scent of it, mingling with the sweat and fear. You move instinctively, your training kicking in, your mind focused solely on survival, on the next strike, the next parry, the next desperate breath. And as the darkness presses in, and the cold seeps deeper into your bones, you understand, with chilling clarity, why being a Roman slave was worse than you think, especially when the unseen killers of disease and despair became your constant companions. They were not just forces of nature, but consequences of a system designed to consume your body and your mind through the relentless assault of filth, infection, and the pervasive presence of unseen tormentors. Your existence is a testament to the brutal efficiency of Roman slavery, a silent scream buried deep within the cold, unforgiving stone, slowly fading into oblivion. The overseers, the vilici, are the direct instruments of your master's will. They are often slaves themselves, or freedmen, chosen for their ruthlessness, their loyalty, and their ability to extract maximum labor from the human property under their command. They patrol the fields constantly, their eyes sharp, their whips ever ready. They are tasked with extracting every ounce of energy from you, and they will use any means necessary to achieve it. Beatings are common, often for minor infractions, a moment of rest, or simply to set an example. You learn to anticipate their movements, to avoid their gaze, to become as invisible as possible, hoping to escape their notice. Yet, even in this oppressive environment, the human spirit sometimes refuses to be entirely extinguished. Whispers of resistance begin to circulate among the slaves, like a faint, defiant breeze, a shared glance of defiance, a coded message passed between workers in the fields, a small act of sabotage. These are the tiny sparks of rebellion that keep hope alive, a silent refusal to be completely broken. You might hear tales of runaways, of slaves who managed to disappear into the vastness of the empire, a fleeting dream of freedom that seems impossibly distant, yet tantalizingly real, a beacon in the darkness. You've battled the lash, the chains, the psychological torment of constant surveillance, and the crushing consequences of any attempt at defiance. You've clung to the fragile hope of resistance, a quiet flicker in the overwhelming darkness of your servitude. You've seen the brutal discipline designed to break your spirit, and the terrifying consequences of rebellion. You've endured the unseen killers of disease and despair, feeling your life force slowly draining away, a grim testament to the system's brutal efficiency. Yet, even in this abyss of dehumanization, a whisper persists, a tantalizing dream that flickers in the minds of the enslaved freedom. It is a hope so profound, so desperately yearned for, that it can sustain you through unimaginable suffering. But the path to liberty, known as manumission, is fraught with its own perils, its own costs, and often its own bitter disappointments. A final, complex chapter in your terrible fate. The psychological impact of living in a state of constant vulnerability, of never truly being safe, is immense. You develop a heightened sense of awareness, always scanning your surroundings, always anticipating, always trying to read the subtle cues in your master's demeanor, in the glances of his sons, in the movements of his guests. Every touch, every glance, every command carries a double meaning, a potential threat. You learn to suppress your emotions, to present a blank, obedient facade. for any sign of distress or defiance could invite further abuse. This constant vigilance, this suppression of your true self, is exhausting, slowly eroding your mental and emotional well-being. The academic debate still rages about the long-term psychological effects of systemic sexual exploitation on enslaved populations, and how these traumas were passed down through generations, impacting family structures, individual resilience, and even the collective psyche of the enslaved. The injuries are constant, almost inevitable, a daily reality in the ludus. Training accidents are common. A missed parry, a clumsy step, a moment of inattention can lead to broken bones, deep, festering cuts, torn muscles, or even permanent disfigurement. There are no proper doctors in the modern sense, only rudimentary healers who patch you up with crude bandages, herbal remedies, and perhaps a strong drink to dull the pain. Infection is a constant, terrifying threat, turning a minor wound into a festering, life-threatening ailment that can claim your life long before you ever step into the arena. You learn to live with pain, to ignore the constant aches and throbs that become an intrinsic part of your daily existence, a grim soundtrack to your training. You hear the stories, whispered in hushed tones among your fellow slaves during rare moments of respite, shared in the fleeting darkness of the barracks, or exchanged in the quiet corners of the villa. Tales of a slave who served his master faithfully for decades, his loyalty unwavering, and was finally granted freedom in his master's will, a deathbed act of benevolence. Stories of a skilled craftsman, perhaps a silversmith or a mosaic artist, who saved every meager coin from his peculium, a small fund he was allowed to manage, a tiny concession from his owner, and eventually, after years of arduous saving, bought his own liberty, a transaction of self-purchase. These narratives, often embellished and passed down with a fervent hope, are like tiny sparks in the pervasive darkness, offering a glimpse of a life beyond chains, a tantalizing possibility that keeps the flame of hope alive. This hope for manumission, a formal act of freeing a slave, was a common historical fact, a legal institution that allowed a small percentage of the vast enslaved population to gain their freedom, offering a safety valve for the system. The academic debate still rages about the extent and nature of slave resistance in ancient Rome. While large-scale rebellions like those led by Spartacus are well documented and captured the Roman imagination, scholars debate the prevalence of everyday forms of resistance, such as feigned illness, slow work, theft, subtle sabotage, or even infanticide, and how effective these individual acts were in challenging the systemic institution of slavery. Some argue that these small acts were more common and perhaps more impactful in the long run than overt rebellion. You might be wounded. A sharp pain searing through your flesh as an opponent's weapon finds its mark. You might fall. The roar of the crowd intensifying, their thumbs turning up or down, sealing your fate. If you are defeated but still alive, your life hangs on the whim of the crowd, or the emperor himself. A thumb turned down means death, a swift, brutal end delivered by your opponent or a designated executioner. A thumb turned up means mercy, a chance to fight another day, to endure more training, more pain, more fear, to face the arena once more. It's like being on a game show where the audience votes on whether you live or die, and the prize is just not dying today, only to repeat the terrifying process. The desire for freedom burns within you, a constant, gnawing ache that consumes your thoughts, a dream that haunts your restless sleep. You imagine a life where your time is your own, where your body is not subject to another's whim, where you can speak your mind without fear of the whip or the branding iron. You dream of choosing your own path, of building a family that cannot be torn apart by sale or arbitrary decision, of simply walking away from the constant fear and degradation that has defined your existence. This dream is your most precious possession, a secret sanctuary in your mind that no master can touch, a profound motivator to endure. It's like fantasizing about winning the lottery, but instead of buying a yacht, you just want to be able to choose what you eat for dinner, where you sleep, and whether you live or die. You might try to find solace in small acts of resistance, in the quiet rebellion of your own mind. You might cling to memories of your past life, of a time when your body was your own, when your choices mattered, when you had dignity. You might find comfort in the shared glances with other slaves, a silent acknowledgement of mutual suffering and unspoken solidarity, a tiny flicker of human connection in the vast darkness of your isolation. These tiny acts of defiance are precious, a way to reclaim a sliver of your humanity in a world that constantly seeks to strip it away. Sometimes, the whispers grow louder, coalescing into a more organized form of resistance. You might hear of plans for an escape, a coordinated effort to overpower the guards and flee into the wilderness, seeking refuge in remote areas or with sympathetic communities. Or perhaps, in the most desperate of circumstances, a plan for outright rebellion, a desperate, bloody fight for freedom against overwhelming odds, a last stand against an unjust system. The thought is terrifying, the risks immense, but the promise of liberty, however slim, can be a powerful, intoxicating motivator, driving men and women to unimaginable acts of courage. The paths to manumission are few and narrow, often dependent on factors entirely beyond your control. The most common, though still rare, is through your master's will, if you have served faithfully, if you have proven yourself indispensable through your skills or loyalty, or if your master feels a pang of conscience in his final days. He might include a clause in his will granting you freedom upon his death. This is a gamble, a lifelong wait for a decision that may never come, dependent entirely on the benevolence or caprice of another human being. You serve with extra diligence. You anticipate every need. You strive for perfection, all in the desperate hope that your efforts will be rewarded with the ultimate prize, a gamble with your very life. And as the day ends, and the villa settles into a deceptive quiet, you retreat to your small, shared space, your body weary, your mind exhausted by the constant vigilance. You close your eyes, and perhaps, for a fleeting moment, you dream of a life where your body, your time, and your very self are truly your own. But then, the sounds of the household stirring, the distant murmur of your master's voice pull you back to the grim reality. Your fate is sealed, a life of hidden chains, where comfort is a facade, and true freedom remains an elusive whisper, a dream that may never be realized. The hope of manumission, of gaining your freedom, might be a distant, tantalizing dream. Some masters, particularly those who valued their domestic slaves for their loyalty or skills, might grant freedom after years of loyal service, or even in their will. But this is rare, and often comes with conditions, such as continuing to serve the master as a freedman, or leaving a portion of your earnings to them. Even if granted, freedom does not erase the scars of servitude, nor does it guarantee an easy life in Roman society. It's a distant light at the end of a very long, very dark tunnel, and there's no guarantee you'll ever reach it. Another path, even more arduous and less common, is self-purchase. If your master allows you to accumulate a peculium, you might, over many years, save enough money to buy your own freedom. This means working extra hours, perhaps engaging in small, clandestine trades on the side, or performing services for others in your meager free time, all while enduring the constant demands of your primary duties. Every coin saved is a victory, a step closer to a future where you are no longer property. But the sum required is often enormous, a lifetime's earnings for most, and the risk of your master simply taking your savings, or revoking your peculium at any moment, is ever present, making it a fragile and often deceptive hope. The consequences of failed rebellion are horrific, designed to instill maximum terror and deter future attempts. Captured runaways face the most brutal punishments: severe beatings, branding, mutilation, or even crucifixion, a slow and agonizing public death, displayed as a grim warning to others. Those involved in larger revolts are massacred, their bodies left unburied, their names erased from history, their memory condemned. The Roman state, with its vast military might and its ruthless efficiency, is merciless in crushing any challenge to its authority, especially from its enslaved population, ensuring that their power remains absolute. The domestic environment, which seemed to offer comfort and luxury, now feels like a gilded cage, its beauty a cruel mockery of your captivity. The fine linens, the exquisite food, the opulent surroundings, they only serve to highlight the stark contrast between your master's lavish life and your own profound degradation. You are surrounded by beauty, yet you are trapped in a nightmare, a prisoner in plain sight. Your suffering hidden behind a facade of wealth and civility. It's like being invited to a fancy dinner party, but you're the centerpiece, and everyone is allowed to touch you. A little-known detail about Roman manumission is that it was not always a purely benevolent act on the part of the master. For masters, freeing slaves could offer several practical advantages. It could incentivize other slaves to work harder and remain loyal, provide a loyal freedman who would continue to serve the family, often as a client, bound by new obligations, or even be a convenient way to avoid supporting elderly or infirm slaves who were no longer productive, effectively offloading a burden. So, while it offered freedom, it was often a calculated economic or social decision for the master, not just an act of kindness or moral rectitude. If you survive, you are dragged back to the ludus, your body broken, your spirit scarred. The wounds are tended to, crudely, painfully, and the long, slow process of recovery begins. But even as your body heals, the psychological scars remain. You have faced death, you have killed, and you have been a spectacle for the amusement of others. The glory of the gladiator, if it exists at all, is fleeting, quickly overshadowed by the grim reality of your existence, a constant reminder of the price of survival. You might witness these brutal reprisals, the sight of crucified slaves lining the roads, their suffering a grim testament to the cost of defiance. The images are seared into your memory, a constant reminder of the power imbalance, of the futility of individual resistance against the overwhelming might of Rome. This public display of punishment was a common historical fact, designed to instill terror and maintain order among the enslaved, a chilling spectacle of state power. Even if you gain your freedom, the chains do not simply vanish. You become a libertus or liberta, a freedman or freedwoman, but you are not a full citizen. You still owe obligations to your former master, now your patronus. You might be required to perform a certain number of days of labor each year, or to pay a portion of your earnings, a form of continued servitude. You are expected to show deference and loyalty, and your patronus still holds considerable influence over your life, often acting as a legal guardian or a powerful protector. It's like finally paying off your student loans, but your old university still expects you to do their laundry every Tuesday, and they still have a say in your career choices. A little-known detail about gladiatorial training is the emphasis on showmanship and dramatic effect over pure combat efficiency. Gladiators were not just trained to kill, they were trained to entertain. This included learning dramatic movements, specific poses, and even how to fall convincingly to make the combat more exciting and visually appealing for the roaring crowd. The goal was to create a compelling, drawn-out spectacle, not just a quick, efficient death, which often prolonged the suffering of the combatants for the sake of entertainment. The casualness with which your masters treat your body is perhaps the most dehumanizing aspect. For them, you are simply a tool, an object to be used for their pleasure. No different from a piece of furniture or a household pet. Your feelings, your pain, your humanity, these are entirely irrelevant, utterly dismissed. This profound lack of empathy, this complete disregard for your personhood, is a constant, grinding force that slowly erodes your spirit, leaving you feeling hollowed out and empty. Socially, you face significant limitations and stigma. While you are no longer property, you are still marked by your past. You cannot hold public office. Your children might face social stigma, and marrying a freeborn Roman citizen can be difficult, sometimes even legally restricted. You are forever an outsider, a former slave, your origins a permanent stain on your social standing, a barrier to full integration into Roman society. The Roman class system is rigid, and while manumission offers legal freedom, it rarely grants true social equality, leaving you in a liminal space. The academic debate still rages about the true extent of social mobility for freed slaves in Roman society, while some scholars point to examples of wealthy and influential freedmen who amassed fortunes and wielded considerable informal power. Others argue that these were exceptions, and that the vast majority of freed slaves remained in precarious economic and social positions, never fully integrating into the upper echelons of Roman society, often struggling to make ends meet and facing constant discrimination. Economically, life as a freedman can be a struggle, a new kind of hardship. You have no land, no established trade unless you were a skilled slave, and often no family support beyond what you can rebuild. You must find a way to earn a living, to compete with free laborers, and to navigate a complex urban economy. Many freedmen continued in the same professions they held as slaves, working as artisans, shopkeepers, or laborers. But now they had to support themselves and their families, often with meager earnings. The freedom to starve is still freedom, but it's not exactly glamorous, and the struggle for survival continues, albeit in a different form. the psychological burden of freedom can also be immense. After a lifetime of having every decision made for you, of being told what to do, where to go, and how to live, the sudden weight of choice and responsibility can be overwhelming. You might struggle with a lingering fear of punishment, a deep-seated anxiety that never truly leaves you, a constant vigilance born of years of servitude, the scars of slavery, both physical and emotional, remain, shaping your interactions, your worldview, and your sense of self. You are free, but you are not unbroken, and the trauma of your past continues to haunt your present. Sometimes, the promise of manumission is a cruel deception, a final act of manipulation. A master might promise freedom only to revoke it at the last moment, or to die without making proper provisions in their will, leaving you in continued bondage. Or perhaps the conditions for freedom are so arduous, so impossible to meet, that the dream remains forever out of reach. A tantalizing mirage. These betrayals are crushing, leaving you with a bitter sense of injustice and a renewed understanding of your utter powerlessness, even in the face of a promised liberty. Even if you achieve freedom, the memories of your past life haunt you, the faces of those you left behind in the slave market, the screams from the arena, the pain of the whip, the degradation of exploitation. These linger in your mind, a constant reminder of the terrible fate you escaped, but can never truly forget. You carry the weight of your history, a silent testament to the millions who never knew the taste of liberty, whose lives ended in chains, their dreams unfulfilled. Your life as a freedman is a testament to your resilience, your tenacity, your unwavering desire for self-determination. You have faced the worst of Roman slavery and emerged, battered but unbroken, into a new, uncertain future. You navigate the complexities of Roman society, always aware of your past, always striving for a better life, not just for yourself, but perhaps for the generations to come, hoping that your children will know a freedom more complete than your own. Your freedom, hard-won and fragile, is a constant reminder of the profound value of liberty, a value that was denied to so many, and a testament to the enduring human spirit. When the night falls, and you lie down, no longer in chains, you feel this fragile freedom. It is not an easy life, but it is yours. You have survived the terrible fate of a Roman slave, and now you are walking your own path, carrying the scars of the past, but also carrying the hope of a future that you can shape for yourself. Well, and that is our journey through the terrible fate of an ancient Roman slave. From brutal capture, being bought and sold as a commodity, to hard labor in the mines, fields, domestic service, and bloody battles in the arena. We have witnessed sexual exploitation, cruel punishments, and the ravages of disease. You have experienced the loss of dignity, profound isolation, and constant fear. But even in that darkness, we see the glimmer of hope of resistance and the yearning for freedom. Ultimately, we have explored the path to liberation, a path that is fraught with hardship and often comes with its own burdens. Hopefully, this story has given you a deeper, more honest look at what it really meant to live in Roman slavery, beyond the romanticized or simplified images that are often presented. Now, as the images of men in chains, bloody arenas, and endless fields fade into the night, let your mind rest. Let the sounds of this story drift into your sleep, bringing you peace and quiet. It is late at night. Good night.